Be a cold winter. Most of them are. Expect to pay higher prices for heating their homes?
Yeah, this is going to happen. It will be more expensive this year than last year.
When the founders knew and understood something about inflation, the runaway inflation of the continental dollar was devastating to the economy, so they were explicit. They said no emitting of bills of credit, no printing money, no paper money, and that only gold and silver should be legal tender. There is no authority in the Constitution authorizing a central bank, which means there should be no Federal Reserve System.
People have this misconception about what civil war really means, and they also don't take into account that we're in what's referred to as fourth and fifth generational era of warfare. We don't necessarily use kinetic force to win wars. We use psychological operations, propaganda, manipulation. I think we're going to go into a psychological conflict. That's what fifth generational warfare is, a reference to manipulating someone online through using fake accounts to convince them that a certain idea is popular. Fourth generational warfare is more is similar, but does involve physical conflict and things like that, propaganda, black ops, false flags, etc.
By making this statement, I am putting myself at great risk because on November 4th, Project Veritas came under attack. I awoke to the news that apartments and homes of Project Veritas journalists, or former journalists, had been raided by FBI agents. It appears the Southern District of New York now has journalists in their sights for the supposed crime of doing their jobs lawfully and honestly. When the FBI in the Southern District of New York seize reporters' notebooks, it is not just an attack on Project Veritas. It is an attack on every American and our sacred right to free speech and a free press. The First Amendment is first for a reason. It guarantees all the other rights that follow, because it's all about accountability. Without accountability, freedom itself is an illusion.
Remember the 5th of November.
Well, welcome to Toxic Airwaves. My co-host is running a little bit late, so I've got Nico and Winekiss in Spaces, guest co-hosting with me. I don't know if Nico realized that because he just popped in, but yeah. How you guys doing tonight?
All good, brother. All time high! All time high! Nikos, get the chicken.
Oh, fuck yeah, I'm going to get the chicken, bro. Dude, we did the first live chicken because we hit all-time high during the recording. The chicken. I was really excited that we hit all-time high. He's been hanging out under my desk, and he tapped on my foot, and he said, "Let me speak." And he clucked like he's never clucked before.
Nice. I think Dennis is feeling a little bit sad right now. Looks like his 58K model may have been broken.
Man, I think this is just the beginning.
I'm still 58K gang until 69,420, and then I remain 58K.
I don't know. It looks like we may break 69,420 here pretty soon. Keeps on going up.
I think so.
Dude, your intro, by the way, was dope.
Thanks.
There's Ron Paul, Project Veritas, which I'm a huge fan of. Dude, that shit was crazy, dude. Fucking this country, bro. It's heading towards communism. I don't know how else to put it. Like, this is literally what they do, bro. They don't like what the opposition party has to say, and they just they make them disappear. But here's the thing, dude. The question that's been really bugging me, that I don't think the Dems are gonna go. They're not gonna be able to make the states full commie because of it's a couple of reasons, right? First reason is freedom of speech, which is the First Amendment. Second reason is the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. right? One of the first things that communists do when they take power is they take away people's guns. Unfortunately for them, right, it is the Second Amendment. And then number three is the decentralized nature of the United States. Like each state has so much sovereignty over the federal government that like one central authority in which that's what they want like is unfeasible, right? And because what's going to happen is you're going to have a better flag theory play out, and people are just going to move towards more freedom loving states like Texas, like Florida. If California becomes too communist, if New York becomes too communist, they'll just leave. And that's exactly what's happening right now in real time, right? People are leaving in droves from California, from New York, and they're coming to Texas, and they're coming to Florida, dude. So like unless they go full commie, like the Dems, and try to like really consolidate power, which I don't think they'll be able to, like, man, like they're screwed. Like, and I think that the Virginia election was just a prelude to that. That state was blue for like 12 years, and they voted in a fucking, a Republican governor because they were tired of the fucking all the commie bullshit. Like, dude, like I really think the Dems are gonna get fucking crushed in the midterms. So I think that's the end of the CRT bullshit as we know it. Because that's the only thing about the left, bro. They only understand one thing, and that's power, right? So, anyways, just a thought.
Yeah, I definitely have like a black-pilled view on politics. I'll get to that here in a second. So Skeef just popped in.
Hello.
Oh, gotta turn on your mic. There we go.
Hello.
Skeef got stuck in traffic.
It was, I can't really blame it all on traffic. It was mostly poor planning on my part.
Oh. Yeah, well, Tucson's a big, I live out in the middle of nowhere, so it takes a while to get into my house. But yeah. So Nico was just kind of outlining.
I don't think this is on.
No. Maybe you're unplugged.
I might have kicked something.
Technical difficulties. Looks like you got unplugged somehow. Okay. You just got to trace the wire somewhere. So Nico was outlining how the Dems want to go full communist, but how difficult it is. And I think the thing that is bullish for anybody that isn't a complete totalitarian is that central planning always fails. And my dog is freaking out. Number 2. Yeah. Central planning always fails, and that's something to be, extremely excited about because, as they try and ramp up these totalitarian policies, but I don't think the Constitution really protects rights in the same way that a lot of people think they do. It's a good where I think it's good is it's a great point of reference for people to look at it. Like these rights are important. This is why, and there's some legal structures trying to protect it, but there has been steady erosions against these different amendments. Like the Second Amendment is totally butchered. Like the Second
I'd push back a little bit against that because so like inherently, yeah, like they are butchered, right? But the genius of the founding fathers was to make the First Amendment the First Amendment and to make the Second Amendment the Second Amendment. So on a statewide level, they could kind of butcher it, right? But again, that's the beauty of the United States, right? Mm-hmm. You move to Florida, all of a sudden it's a castle doctrine. You fucking step onto my property, I'm legally allowed to shoot you, right? So again, like that has like a natural, like self-correcting type of situation, right? Because if things get too bad in New York, people will just leave New York, less revenue, and eventually, the commies, they get voted out because they just destroyed the state, the city economically, right? So, and then it shifts a little bit to the right. And a really interesting point also too, because we're living through like a political realignment, I would say, in the United States. And what you're seeing is what's happening right now is a battle between globalism and nationalism, right? And that's really what's going on, right? Of each individual country having sovereignty, or are we moving towards this one world government, which is all part of the Great Reset, all part of the digital IDs, all part of the social credit system? That's what China wants. That's what Klaus Schwab wants. That's what all these fucking people want. That's what all the giant global corporations want. And they're using wokeism and race as a means to an end, right? And then on the other side, which I'm extremely bullish on, because I just see so much hope there, is this revitalized patriotism / like hope for the future. And you're seeing a lot of people that were asleep. All of a sudden they're awake now, dude. Like, they're awake because they're seeing how absurd it is. Look, I'm a libertarian, dude. I grew up on South Beach. I could give a shit whether you're gay, straight, what your skin color is. If you want me to call you a girl and you're a biological man, I don't have a problem doing that. The issue though is that they're pushing this shit down people's throats, right? They're teaching this shit to little fucking kids, and little kids have no idea what any of this means, right? So it's like they're doing a damage to society to the point that it's really waking people up. And one of the things that happened with the last election, right, with Trump and all that stuff, right, is that I think a lot of people voted for Biden because they dislike Trump's attitude. They dislike Trump's personality. And they wanted, Grandpa Joe. Like, they wanted this oh, he was vice president of Obama and whatever. But now it's all revealed. The emperor has no clothes. Now it's all exposed, right? Now they can't blame it on Trump. Now it's exposing these crazy leftist ideals for what they are, right? Look at the situation at the border. Look at what they're teaching kids at school. Look at what they're doing, whatever, and it's revitalizing the American spirit. This has never happened in my lifetime. It's waking people up in this country, and it's making them realize that freedom is a very fragile thing, and it needs to be fought for, right? So I'm very, very bullish on the future, and I think I don't have a fortune, I don't have a fortune ball or whatever, but I think that Bitcoin is going to play like a major role in this. I don't see how yet, but I suspect Bitcoin's going to play a major role in the side of freedom in the next 10, 15 years. And on the other side, you're going to have central bank digital currencies and all these crazy fucking, things that these people want to do and shit.
Yeah. No, yeah. I agree with a lot of that. I think we're shifting a lot politically. I guess I kind of see it as it's a battle of decentralization against globalism. And I think we're kind of moving away from nationalistic tendencies. Is what you're seeing a lot of fractures of regions, of different regions wanting to split off. And I feel like once they gain enough momentum in financial sovereignty, we're going to start to see that a bit more. And one of the biggest things inhibiting a move like that is the dependence of, the individual jurisdictions on the federal government, for financial things like funding schools, funding roads and such. And it is extremely exciting to see the shift right now. I mean, they've pushed so hard so fast, and it's absolutely disgusting. Like, the stuff you're talking about, what they're teaching kids in schools is just absolutely terrible. Like, focusing on, race and, whatever else. And, to be honest, I don't really think that public schools should exist. Yeah, we're trending in a cool direction. There's a big fight picking up. But yeah, I kind of want to circle back to the Project Veritas thing, that you briefly mentioned, Nico, in the beginning, because that's kind of a big deal. And I'm curious, are you ready to have your house raided by the FBI for saying things the state doesn't like?
So I think it's a fascinating topic, and you kind of have to tie this in with like, okay, so let's backtrack on what exactly, like, what is causing this phenomenon, right? So the internet did something. It disintermediated the gatekeepers of information. So, for example, before, if I wanted to have a late night show, or if I wanted to, release an article, right? I would have to go through an institution, or a large media organization, right? And now anybody with a webcam and a microphone that provides value could go viral on the internet and could reach a lot of eyeballs, right? So what you're seeing in terms of the Project Veritas, right, is just a symptom of the transition between the industrial age into the information age, right? And it's beautiful because Bitcoin plays straight into that as well. And now Bitcoin disintermediates the money, right? So it's creating all of this chaos, right? All of a sudden, these gatekeepers of information, that these institutions that have been around for 100 years, the New York Times, all those publishing papers, right? All of a sudden, dude, they're competing with people on the internet. I get my news from Twitter. Twitter is a much more reliable source of news, factual news, than any of the fact checks, any of the propaganda narrative pieces that they come out, right? Why? Because they have handcuffs. They have handcuffs to their corporate overlords, right? So and how does this relate to Project Veritas? Project Veritas, right, is going and it's exposing government corruption, right, to the highest levels, using, right, insiders, meaning that they don't manipulate any type of the content that they get, right? Like a lot of the legacy outlets do this, and they get away with it because of how much political power they have. But with Project Veritas, James O'Keefe has done an amazing job at staying true to exactly the source material, and he doesn't manipulate it in any shape or form, and they can't attack him for it. So they go crazy. They're going crazy because it's hurting their legitimacy. It's hurting their narrative, right? And they can't control it. So what? And this was actually outlined in the book, The Sovereign Individual, that these types of lash outs would happen, right? Because of this transition. Because all of a sudden you had people working in media, for example. You have people working in like CNN. I'll give you a traditional mainstream media channel, right? That have been used to getting, most of the views, and now you have Steven Crowder, who's also being censored, right? He's a famous conservative YouTube commentator, and he's also being censored, but he's getting more views than CNN. So all of a sudden, CNN and the New York Times, that are in cahoots with the federal government to try to paint a narrative to the average Joe, could no longer paint that narrative because individuals are freely communicating with each other. And now individuals could fully communicate and transact with each other. So if I want to send $1 million to Winekiss right now, I could do it, and I don't have to ask anybody. Not that I have that money, whatever. I'm just giving an example, but I could send trillions, billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to Winekiss right now without having to ask anybody for permission. And social media is doing the same thing. So governments are freaking out. That's why they're coming out with the fact checkers. That's why they're coming out with this. But unfortunately for them, and this is the beauty of the founding fathers, is that the First Amendment is the First Amendment. right? The government doesn't have the right to stifle speech, right?
But they
So
do
they're
it
in a
anyway.
pickle.
They do it anyway.
No,
The
they're
Constitution's
they're,
written on toilet paper, as far as I'm
no,
concerned.
no, no, no.
All right, so here,
Tucson,
hold on, real quick. We got to address a comment in our YouTube chat. We got some ride or dies that have been around for a long time in the YouTube chat. They are missing my cutoff shirt, but I have a very, very, very good reason for not having a cutoff shirt today, which is that I am supporting some friends of the show, Plan B Passport, Katie the Russian, Al's Lacrosse. Who else is there? Jessica Hodler. So
Nice.
there you go, YouTube chat. That's why we don't have the cutoff shirt today.
That's a sweet shirt.
You want to do the intro?
I did the intro.
You did the intro. I'm just late. All right. But
I'll play it for you afterwards.
all right, I want to see it. Yeah, so I'm excited about our topic tonight. We have a vendetta with the state.
Yes, that's our topic.
And what there was a scene from V for Vendetta that kind of inspired this. I have the quote pulled up if you want me to
Sure.
read it. All right. So
Lurk approves of your shirt, by the way.
all right, I appreciate that, young Lurk. So the quote we were chatting about that kind of spawned. So I hope everybody's seen V for Vendetta. If you haven't, figure out why you make terrible life choices. So there's a scene where V, as William Rockwood, he's dressed up in that costume, and he's talking to the inspector for the first time. And he tells the whole story, what happened with the virus, blah, 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 blah. And Finch, the inspector, he says, can you prove any of this? V says, why do you think I'm still alive? Finch says, right. Well, we'd like to take you into protective custody, Mr. Rockwood. V says, oh, I'm sure you would, but if you want that recording, you'll do what I tell you to do. Put Creedy under 24-hour surveillance. When I feel safe that he can't pick his nose without you knowing, I'll contact you again. Until then, cheerio. Finch says, Rockwood, why didn't you come forward before? What were you waiting for? And V says, for you, Inspector. I needed you. And that, I don't know why that was so interesting to me, but it was just like that idea that like what he needed for his plan was that guy that on paper is evil in every way imaginable. 27-year member of the party, cop, literally best buddies with all these evil people, or he works with all these evil people. And I don't know, it got me thinking, which is something that I would be super interested to hear people's thoughts on is, and what we're trying to do with Bitcoin, everything we're working on, all that, how do we identify and use those kinds of people, like the Inspector Finch type characters from V for Vendetta, like people that we can identify, I don't know, in these apparatuses. I think there's like one thing that we've talked about before is kind of people that are in the military community, that there's a lot of people like that we can access, reach, orange pill, and then kind of help to join the pleb network and see what we can do. But if that was a total bummer of a quote, then we can move on. But I thought it was interesting, and I'd be interested to hear if anybody has any strong thoughts on that, or if that resonated at all, or if it was really stupid. Either one is totally fine.
Well, I'll just say something real quick and throw it over to Spaces, but there's this theme. I think Marty Bent was the first person I heard talk about it, or somebody referenced him saying it, but this idea of recruiting an army of Ron Swansons being an interesting tactic for dealing for this. But yeah, Spaces, what do you think about that? Interesting.
AK-47 in the chat says V for Vendetta is my new favorite movie. Good choice.
Yeah. My girlfriend's really lucky to have me as her boyfriend, who sat her down and watched that for her first time on November 5th. That is a yearly tradition of mine.
Nice.
So
that's a good move.
She's very fortunate to have me. She enjoyed it. Yeah, that movie's a little bit close to home this year. I think that's...
Yeah, I always thought that's something we've talked about, is we always knew they were going to do something wacky to unwind all this stuff. And I had assumed it was going to be another war. I thought they were going to invade Iran, invade Syria, something like that. I didn't
Still
know.
a possibility.
Yeah, so that's true. I didn't see reenact V for Vendetta be in the playbook. But yeah, AK-47 in our YouTube chat says, so who would be that person in the Bitcoin community? Some say Sailor. I could see that kind of a role. It was for me, it was just such an interesting idea because it wasn't like these things usually get approached from the perspective of like saving that person or some form of altruism or something like that. And for some reason, I just hadn't connected like really how integral Inspector Finch was to that whole movie. And he says, basically says, I needed you as part of the plan, and then I'm not going to spoiler alert too much about what happens at the end, but
you should. I mean, if somebody didn't watch it, then they deserve to have it spoiled.
I don't know.
It came out in like 2007 or 5 or something like that.
Yeah. Everybody who's watched it will know what I'm talking about, and I really, really, even if there's one person listening who hasn't seen it, I really don't want to ruin it. Don Reddy said he missed my pretty face, so you'd be surprised how often I hear that. Quite often, actually. No, that's a joke.
I hear that once a week, but not from you guys.
But most importantly, new all-time high. What are we at? 67 and some change.
Something like that.
That is the scoreboard of Bitcoin versus the Federal Reserve.
How many? What is that priced in F-15s? I saw some F-15s flying today. That's the real question.
That I do not know.
Hobo's ripping the bong.
Nice, thank you. We appreciate your input.
Yes. Oh.
Trying to stay high with the highs,
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Always welcome on Toxic Airwaves, for sure.
All-time high for Hobo Hodler on the show. Hopefully, at least. So, Young Lurk says, Sailor was on Pomp Show today looking like a statist. He wants the dollar to succeed with Bitcoin.
Yeah. I never had terribly high hopes for him. He was always I don't know, like people can go back and look at earlier episodes. Like he for me, he was always a public company CEO who had regulators permanently installed up his ass at all times. And he was just like, I don't know. The fact that he did anything positive for Bitcoin was always just a fascinating thing to me, because it's like the default would be what literally every other public company CEO is doing, which is, just not do anything with Bitcoin, not promote it, not be that kind of, he's provided some resources, things like that. But it's definitely concerning. Especially I did watch that clip from today, like that argument of like, we really need to be careful about saying mean things about the dollar. The dollar's going to succeed. The dollar's for freedom. Like the stuff that does not, I don't know. I know the standard people that like Sailor, the standard argument is it's 4D chess. It's, I don't know. You don't understand the game he's playing. He's got to play close to the chest. And I get that. It's, seems reasonably sensible. But when he did that interview with Marty Bent and then the GAM guy and then the other guy from the Bitcoin Mining Council, that my spook red flags went up big time during that interview. And after that, I wouldn't be comfortable saying I'm even confident that he is, but I will say my spook red flags definitely went up on that one, and they've been going up since then.
Yeah, it makes sense. Marty's not paranoid. That was a crazy interview. That definitely.
Yeah, he came across very disingenuous. Sailor did.
So, kind of back to the topic, like V for Vendetta and Inspector Finch, is that his name?
Yeah, that's the detective guy.
Yeah. So, one of the interesting ideas that has been posed to me, a couple times is this idea of going after sheriffs. And this is something that was really interesting. If you've never looked into the Bundy Ranch happenings, that's definitely something to go do. There's a good documentary on YouTube about it if you go and look at it. I forgot what the organization was that did the documentary, but a lot of times the local sheriffs supersede these 3-letter agencies. And if you have one that puts their foot down and says, no, screw you, to the ATF or, whichever one it is, in the Bundy Ranch case, it was Bureau of Land Management, which is, funny because they're not one that you'd think about being that bad, but apparently they treat ranchers pretty shitty. The sheriff didn't really show up for them in that scenario, but it is an interesting situation to look at and think of like, could a local sheriff be the Don's asking what happened at Bundy Ranch. So Bundy Ranch was a ranch in Nevada, kind of out near Vegas, and it's been a while since I looked into it, so don't take anything I say as fact. Go look at it yourself, but I'll try and summarize it. So they had a big issue with BLM and grazing rights. So BLM, they'd been traditionally letting their cows graze on federal lands, and the BLM wanted, a bunch of money from them in order to allow them to do that. And they're like, go screw yourselves. That's bullshit. We've been doing this for forever. And so they amassed a group of people to, go and protest against them and stand there and say, like, you guys need to leave. And they got the sheriff involved and tried to get him to kick him out. And, it was kind of a crazy standoff that happened where BLM amassed with, sniper rifles, and they went and killed a bunch of their cattle. And, it was a crazy situation, but BLM ended up backing down in the end, and they had somewhat of a victory in that scenario. And I think that's the point where we're coming to, where we need to have this like non-compliance. And we're seeing it happen, across the board with businesses, with police departments, fire departments, in response to the vax mandates. And it's a beautiful thing to see. But yeah, the idea of an Inspector Finch type character and finding them is super interesting in this regard. So
yeah, and then like leveraging them and figuring out how to use them too. Like that it's purely a pragmatic play, and that it just got me thinking about that and how it might work. And I don't know, you talk about Bundy Ranch, like another one is, Ruby Ridge is obviously another big one. And it's, I get I was a constitutional libertarian for years. Like Ron Paul voted, I voted 2012, 2016, I voted for libertarians, the whole thing. I thought that was the answer. Get the right people elected. And just, I could not have possibly abandoned that view anymore. It just, I don't know. I think, when I hear things like constitutional protections or whatever, talking about Ruby Ridge, I think, where were the constitutional protections for Randy Reaver's wife, who got shot in the face while holding a baby by an FBI sniper? ATF. Yeah. Same thing. These guys, it's just like, these are, and then on top of that, after they did that, they were, on the loudspeaker taunting them and the kids the whole time. Like, these are fundamentally completely evil and corrupt human beings. Like, the people that do things like that are non-redeemable. And it's like the only, like, what we can do that's meaningful is we can protect ourselves as much as possible from their influence and opt out of it. Because any sort of confrontation with them does not go well. Like, for the foreseeable future, they've got the ability to mobilize force, better. Someday that'll change, but for now that's the case. And so the most meaningful thing we can do is opt out of all that noise and say, like the example we've used here before is, me personally, I've got kids. I don't give a shit what the local school is teaching, critical race theory, whatever. I don't even know who's on the school board. I don't know who the teachers are. I don't know who the principals are. I don't know the name of a single school in Tucson. That's not true. There's one by my house that I know. Okay, except for that one, I don't know the name of any school in Tucson. Because my kids are educated at home. They don't go to these Soviet indoctrination camps, and it's like that to me. Like that's the proper approach to government, is making it obsolete and opting out of it. And it's like, just like I don't have to give a shit about anything related to school board. My kids don't even know what Drag Queen Story Hour is because we don't go to that shit. And it's like it annoys the shit out of me. Like, I see these things on Twitter, people are like, how come the Met Gala, they don't have to wear masks, but my 7-year-old does? And it's like, hey, fucking idiot, your 7-year-old doesn't either. Like, protect them from abuse. Like, protect them from these terrible environments, and they don't have to either. And it's I don't know, this like lack of personal responsibility and blaming the state by people who I largely would otherwise align with on principles is annoying as shit. But I don't know. I might be a little jacked up from all-time high. But
yeah, I was talking about this with Joe Rogers last week about we're probably going to see a massive shift right in politics again. And if you think about all the prior times we've had Republicans in office, they haven't really done anything positive for the country and instead have contributed to this mess. And I think the Republican Party and people on the right have tendencies to be totalitarian. It just looks a little bit different and is friendlier to a lot of people. And I think, where we're going is pretty scary. And I just don't think, politicians are ever going to be our friends and we're really going to be able to change anything productive through the ballot box. Like, we're not going to get rid of the Federal Reserve and we're not going to end the foreign wars. Like, people have been voting to end the wars for a very long time. And when you go and you vote, you give your consent essentially to a politician and it feeds into the system when there's plenty of other productive things to do, like Skeef was talking about, of opting out and ending the madness. And like, this stops when people stop giving legitimacy to the system and they mock it and they ridicule it and they just don't comply. And that's what it's going to have to come down to at the end of the day is like, there's a lot of business owners out there that are getting treated like absolute garbage. They've had their businesses shut down, told that they're their workers are what's the word? Non-essential. They're getting taxed to shit. They're having to deal with all these stupid regulations. I've talked about Prop 206 quite a bit on this show, and that recently passed. And it doesn't matter if you get somebody else into government. The problem is government at the end of the day, because there's this constant creep. The government views you as something to extract from. You exist to give them tax money to fund whatever they want to. And they get to have special privileges because of their position. And that's just complete bullshit. At the end of the day, we don't need people telling us what to do. And it's incredibly destructive, to live in this system. And so like this idea of like the Constitution is going to protect it. The Constitution's cool in the sense of like it frames like important things, like guns are important, speech is important, but those things are not going to be protected by a piece of paper, and they're not going to be protected by courts, because the courts are referees for the government, but they're part of the government. So it's the government refereeing themselves. And so we can't rely on that. And we can, we can use these things. We can use the tools of the courts like James O'Keefe does, which is kind of interesting. Or, I'm not a fan of the Church of Scientology, but they've had a great job going after the IRS. You can use these different mechanisms to fight back and find your Inspector Finches. And, we can create our own cabals and fight the system. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of fired up on that topic. Statism really pisses me off.
Yeah, it's just, to me, it's like, and it's especially depressing to see it in the Bitcoin space, because it's like the whole way they enforce all these mandates and fines and all this bullshit is because they control your bank account. I mean, it's like up Washington where I used to be, there was a restaurant that just never closed for the whole COVID, the whatever, like up in Washington on the West Coast, and they're just like, yeah, no, go fuck yourself. And, health inspectors showed up and gave them fines. They told them to eat a whole bag of dicks, and they just never closed. They were open the whole time, never had mask mandates or whatever. They had like 6 figures worth of fines, and, there's a whole thing like raising money to like help them, like, but there's even like a fun thing to raise the fund, but it's like, why are these fines even getting paid? Like if their unit of account is Bitcoin, if their tools that they use are Bitcoin, if their checking account's Bitcoin, their savings account is Bitcoin, how much more empowered are they to tell those inspectors, to do what a lot of us have done with, just our personal finances or whatever. Like there's, don't dox yourself. There's probably a lot of people listening to this who don't have the best credit score ever because they leveraged it for sats. And it's like, what are they empowered to do against you? They're empowered to make some imaginary number that Citibank has slightly lower than it was before. That's all they can do. And it's just, it's hilarious to watch, and it's beautiful to watch. And it's just like one more awesome example of this cathedral burning in a fire. And it's like, that's been, I think, a big theme of this show is, this tyranny ends when enough individuals accumulate enough economic power. And that has to be our focus, not politics, not voting, not calling senators, certainly not donating money to these terrorists. Like, none of that noise. Like, the move is accumulate as much Bitcoin for you and the people you care about as possible, and, be a part of ending the American empire. Like, use it privately, opt out, live your life on a Bitcoin standard as much as you possibly can, and be just a little bit more sovereign, a little bit more free than we were yesterday and the day before. And that, I think we're already starting to see that snowball, and that we don't, another theme has been that remnant idea. It's like 90% just doesn't matter at all whatsoever. Completely irrelevant. They're trees, as far as we're concerned. And the move is figure out who is that critical, maybe 3 to 5% of the population that actually changes things, and network with them and figure out what to build.
Shout out to the trees.
Shout out to the trees.
Yeah.
No ill feelings towards them. Totally neutral.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's solid. I think that's huge. And what it comes down to is like you just need that 3 to 5% of people to not comply. What's happened with a lot of these businesses that have gotten targeted. I'm not familiar with the story of that place in Washington, but there's the gym in New Jersey, Attilas Gym, exact same story. Didn't comply, fined an incredible amount of money, and the big problem is that they're standing alone, and that's where this has to end. Is like, if you care about liberty and you care about moving in a positive direction, is getting out there and supporting those businesses. We had one in Tucson called Viva Coffee, and I try and support that guy, however I can, even though he's a diehard statist. But that stuff's important. The non-compliance is important, and the ridiculing the state, and just yeah. When we give them legitimacy, we're giving them legitimacy to all the terrible things they've ever done and will continue to do. And it's like, we've seen this, like, in our lifetime, my generation, like, the 2 big elections have been Obama and Trump. What happened with Obama, continued wars. Like, he promised to end the wars. He promised to enact all these things that, seemed good. And I think a lot of people felt really hopeful. I was in high school for that one, middle school and high school. And, it was just the same old game of, like, helping the crony capitalists and, doing all the bullshit, drone striking innocent people in other countries, feeling the fires of just inequity and bullshit, and eliminating freedoms. Trump got elected, and this guy is not a saint. He loved the Federal Reserve. He totally he tried to push them to negative interest rates at one point. He extrajudicially assassinated a general of another country, which is amazing that we didn't get into a war with Iran over that, which shows that they don't have nukes and probably aren't as big of a threat as the media says. But that's bullshit, and then his department, it was the Department of Justice, Mike Pompeo, I think, was involved with it, but there were plans to try and assassinate and capture or kidnap Julian Assange out of another country's embassy, which is just insane. Like, he was not a friend of freedom. We get a DeSantis or Trump in office again, and it's going to be the same thing over again. It doesn't get better, by electing different people. And, the pain is coming whether we like it or not. And I think a lot of people have this perspective, like, if we get a Republican in office, it's going to be less painful. And I just don't think it is, because all the things that are, there's still going to be censorship. There's still going to be, corrupt politicians. The ATF and all these 3-letter agencies are still going to go, after people. And yeah, it's going to be nuts.
Well, yeah, and it's like Trump couldn't even protect himself from these FBI crooks. You think he's going to protect you? It's hilarious. I mean, it's like, that's why, Michael Malice has this amazing quote: "Conservatives are just progressives who drive the speed limit." And I think it's totally spot on. Like, this idea that, traditionally conservative, like, they're, I could go as far as saying they might be marginally better than just the outright blatant leftist communists. Like I think they could be a little bit better. But this idea that they're obviously a much better choice or like a source of hope or optimism, right? It's so stupid. I think, in my humble but correct opinion.
Yeah. So AK-47 asks, do they have to pay or can they just ignore the fines? What are the consequences for not paying? So what happened to Attila's jet in New Jersey is that a judge ordered that the courts or the state could pierce the LLC and go after the business owners directly and go after their assets, which is kind of scary. So, you as a business owner would open an LLC to differentiate your assets, like your house or, stuff that you have from the business. So that way, the business is held liable, gives you some personal liability protection in lawsuits. And so, yeah, I mean, the state has a bunch of dirty tricks, but, the thing is, all of this has to play out in the courts. I think the courts are rigged. But, when you go and you fight it, and the cool thing is there's a lot of people that are willing to give money to these businesses that are non-compliant to go make it really expensive for the state to do these things. And I think that's where we win. But ultimately, some of us are going to go down. And this idea of like, we're going to come out of this unscathed is just, you can either stand up and fight right now or end up in a gulag later. It's like, I don't know. And our chances of like actually achieving what we want or where we need to get, in actually achieving liberty and freedom in our lifetimes entirely relies on us being active right now. So,
but it's important to remember we have the tools to avoid confrontations. Like we have the tools to play our game by our rules, not their game by their rules. And so, like the Bundy example, that to me, like I'm happy it worked out for them, but that was them playing the state's game by the state's rules, and it's extremely fortunate that it didn't turn out a lot worse. And it's like we're I guess we have the tool set available to fight our battles, to opt ourselves, to protect ourselves without that kind of upfront confrontation. It's like the whole idea is like this idea of like making sure they don't have a door to knock on is a big piece of it that Bitcoin enables, is making sure they don't even know that you exist in a certain area. Like that's the kind of stuff that is possible with Bitcoin today and will be easier and easier. And as more people use those tools and as the barrier to doing that becomes lower and lower, as these businesses move their assets into Bitcoin, which can't be seized, without direct force, like gun to the head type force, it's going to be way more difficult for them to enforce this noise. And that I think is the win, is this, like, we talk about decentralization all day, like decentralize everything, the fight, the defense, like spread them so thin that they are even more impotent than they already are. And even all of that just kind of expedites this whole process a little bit. Like to me, the outcome is totally fixed and totally done. Like it's over. They have, this idea of being fearful of an all-powerful, like we've already seen the absolute height of state power in the history of all humanity, in my opinion. I just think it's a downward trajectory towards zero, and it's only going to get faster. Because Bitcoin just absolutely destroys their ability to accumulate power and resources, and it's going to be very fun to watch what this decade looks like, I think.
Yeah, I guess like my perspective, and I agree with the fact that like we've seen the height of state power. My concern is, are they going to try and burn things to the ground as they go to the ground? And they have some pretty powerful tools to do it in a way that is long lasting. You've got people in places of power that talk about things non-ironically, like limiting population growth and sterilizing people. You've got I mean, people talking about things like making people intolerant of being able to eat meat in the future. You've got all of these insane psychopaths that are willing to go to any lengths to try and retain power. And I guess that I see a pretty intense battle going forward. And I think, yes, in the long term, things are good, but I think, ultimately it's important to be proactive knowing this. Like I'm interested for sure in trying to protect, the people in my periphery as well as myself and my family. And, to a certain degree, there's not a lot I can do there if they're not willing to practice, these practices that protect them. But I want to be out there offering them and offering the business and like going out there and actually finding the remnant to try and rebuild from the ashes. I think that's important. So,
yeah. And I think those things even further, like I think those kinds of moves are a short, medium, and long-term net negative for them because it just further delegitimizes them. Like their whole, like that's for example, that's why I think political correctness is such an important issue, is because that's a big way that they control the narrative, is by saying, no, this is how we talk, this is how we don't talk. You can't talk about the government killing babies because that's mean and that hurts people's feelings, and there's all this noise. And the people who win the control of that narrative are the people that say, no, you are directly complicit in killing children for living on the wrong side of an imaginary line. And they'll say, oh, you can't say things like that. That's, that hurts people's feelings, that, some guy at the Pentagon just got, feels bad about his life, whatever, all this stuff. And it's like, I think we have to keep that going. We saw it this week, Elon to Ron Wyden. I forget, Ron Wyden said something about billionaires paying taxes or something. And Elon didn't respond with, like the traditional, news media, whatever response is, oh, well, actually, when the government wants to raise, all this bean counter stuff. Now, what Elon said was, why does your profile picture look like you just came? And it's like, that's the kind of blatantly disrespectful, like we need more division, more of this just turmoil, this like blatant disrespect. And it's just, and not just because it's fun to watch, but because it's very effective. And it's way more effective than like pretending like, I don't know, like pretending like these people have legitimacy.
Let's go, Brandon.
It seems like exactly. Let's go, Brandon. Another perfect one. Like it just and it's, I don't know. I think it's important to use those tools and to take that approach, because it's like, if I ever had the misfortune of talking to a politician, I would not be, sucking their, anyway, I would not be sucking up to them to say, oh, could you please be nice to Bitcoin? Like I would say, look, here's the trend of history. Here's the way things are going. Your options are A, submit to Bitcoin and Bitcoiners and, recognize that this is the future. This is like your last option to get out of here unscathed. And if you don't go that route, and if you go the route of trying to persecute this movement for human freedom, it's not going to be good. And I'm not talking about losing elections. Like it's just this. There's a very, very clear division between who's on the side of human flourishing and who is not. And I think the people that are not, we need to treat them with as much blatant disrespect as possible, and just not pretend for a second like they have a valid perspective.
If you were in a concentration camp, would you be trying to work with your prison guard?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Survival in Auschwitz by Primo Levi. Fantastic book on that subject, by the way.
Yeah.
He's like a scientist who wrote a whole book on the process of that. Horrifically depressing book, but very high quality.
Night by Elie Wiesel, another good one. And my all-time favorite is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Yeah, similar lines of thinking.
Do you see what Lyric said?
Let's go, Brandon. NASCAR commissioner came out and said they're going to take future precautions. Let's go, Brandon. What a cuck. See, this is why NASCAR is bullshit. NASCAR is so stupid. So first of all, it's incredibly boring because they pack up way too much. They just drive side by side the whole race. IndyCar is where it's at, or Formula One. I'm more of an IndyCar person. because there's a lot more skill involved. But, you know, NASCAR has to do these stupid gimmicks like starting and stopping the race and implementing a point system. Like, it's just so boring. They try and like implement Mario Kart into it, and now what a cuck.
Yeah. He should have played to his audience and said, "Oh, you guys are concerned about the Let's Go Brandon stuff. Counterpoint would be you can blow me." Like that's the kind of response we need to see out of these people.
Yeah. So AK-47's read Man's Search for Meaning. Don says Night's a good one. Haven't read Man's Search for Meaning. Definitely encourage it. Like, if you ever go through a bout of like depression, it's really, really good book. He outlines like, so the coolest aspect of the book is that he was a psychologist. Viktor Frankl is a psychologist, and he used his experience to go and be helpful to people afterwards. And I think there's an aspect of that is so, you know, exciting and admirable, of like, you can go through these terrible things in your life, and if you can find, you know, a sense of purpose and meaning in them, and then use that to give back to somebody else, it's like that experience has so much less power over you. And I think that's such an important message. We have a really sick society, showing that, you know, Don, for example, loves NASCAR, kind of a sick person. But we have a really sick society that, you know, celebrates mental illness and victimhood, and that's just total bullshit, and it's not helpful or empowering to the individual whatsoever. That book is one of my all-time favorites. I've read it probably 6 or 7 times through.
I will say one big redeeming thing about NASCAR is that without NASCAR, we would not have one of the most important life philosophers of the 21st century, which is obviously Ricky Bobby.
Lurk asked if Don's favorite driver is Tony Stewart. I'm guessing that Don's favorite driver is Danica Patrick.
That's legit. That's fair.
I'm talking shit. Yeah, no. I've always been an IndyCar fan.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ed Carpenter's team. I've always enjoyed Ed Carpenter. I've always been a Andretti Green fan. That's my team, my IndyCar team. But Ed Carpenter's a new favorite.
I just remembered something I haven't thought about in a very long time. So when I was a teenager, I worked at McDonald's. One of the things I did was I worked the drive-through, and this lady drives up, and she yells, "Carl Edwards!" I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And she's like, "Carl Edwards!" And I was like, No. I pointed to my name tag and introduced myself. She's like, "No, you look like Carl Edwards." I'm like, "Bitch, I don't know who the fuck Carl Edwards is." And she just starts yelling and yelling, and it's like, it's McDonald's at the drive-thru. So I'm like, you know, on a timer, like the whole thing was stressful. And she's like, "No, Carl." And so she's explaining to me Carl Edwards is this NASCAR driver and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she thought that I looked like Carl Edwards, but this was over a decade ago, so maybe not anymore. But it was this just, interesting lady yelling and yelling and yelling. Oh, yeah. AK-47's this drive-through story before.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, so Don, it says, "Never thought you'd be a NASCAR minimalist, Tucson."
We're just learning a lot about everybody tonight.
Yeah, they're having heart-to-hearts out here. So, yeah, no, I mean, I just grew up on IndyCar, and I'm a big fan of it. And, you know, NASCAR has a really cool history, you know, and I'll give it that. I think auto racing is one of the coolest sports out there because the amount of skill and mental fortitude and I mean, it's just a grueling sport, and it's one of the few sports that you can die in. So, you know, I do have to say, you know, for that reason, NASCAR is a cool sport. We've got a junior league NASCAR track in Tucson, which is pretty sick. Last time I went, they let us out on the track and talk to these guys. So that aspect of it is cool. We actually have one of the best tracks in the U.S., in my opinion, up in Phoenix. And IndyCar used to come out there, and all the cucks in Phoenix wouldn't show up. So they stopped bringing IndyCar here. But, yeah, been to a couple NASCAR races up there. So
we got some blatant lies in the chat from Lurk saying I look like Ed Sheeran. I do not look like it.
I can see it.
I'm being attacked. Was it me and Log Scale are going to go have a safe space without all these mean words?
So, AK-47 says, I've never watched NASCAR. Yeah, if you get the chance, racing is best in person.
Yeah. And if not, definitely watch Talladega Nights.
Yeah, watch Talladega Nights, and yeah. Tony Stewart, for sure. When he hit me and killed the guy, giving him the bird on the dirt, I hung up his poster. Damn. I didn't know that happened.
How did he... Yeah, I didn't hear that story. How did he hit him? Just drove off it? I don't know.
Some guy in the dirt, and he just went and plowed him, I guess. That's pretty wild.
Don't give Tony Stewart the bird, I guess.
Yeah. No. Auto racing and mixed martial arts and boxing I put into the same category of awesome sports. There were some pretty good fights the other night that I don't know what happened.
I missed it. I was bummed.
Yeah, I was. Oh, yeah. AK-47 says you're a ginger like Ed Sheeran.
I have a soul. I'm not a ginger.
Yeah. So, kind of moving on from NASCAR and Ed Sheeran. So it looks like the cathedral is really losing this narrative battle on inflation.
Yeah.
And it seems like people are realizing it's kind of hard when, you know, they do the same bullshit and publish, 5% inflation rate, and you go to the grocery store and the basket of groceries that you were buying last year is now double the price. And so it's been interesting for me. I'm shooting a documentary on inflation right now, specifically in Tucson, and going around and talking with people about their experiences with the prices right now. I was interviewing a guy that is a machinist and owns a metals shop in Tucson, and he said his quotes for customers are based on a week-to-week basis because of the prices going up, and that's insane. You know, there's a guy up in Phoenix that has a pizza shop that accepts Bitcoin, same exact story. And it seems like raw materials and food are getting hit especially hard right now. And I don't think people are buying the whole idea that this is all supply chains. You know, that definitely plays a factor into it. But I think people are realizing that expanding the money supply by 40% in 18 months is probably playing a factor into this. So that's good.
Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. The way that this is going to affect normal people who don't own or understand Bitcoin is going to be very rough. Like it's not good. And that's, I don't know what the other than trying to get people on board. I don't know what exactly the answer is to that, because I don't see much light or hope for those people outside of adopting Bitcoin in their life and outside of moving their financial life outside of the control of these psychopaths and terrorists.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm extremely hopeful on this front, and I think like the adoption is going to come, really quick. And it kind of plays into, I think the hard part with the Bitcoin thing is not the actual utility of it, because it makes perfect sense for somebody. It's like, hey, you can take your payment processor, tell them to go shove it, and now accept Bitcoin with no payment fees, and then you have a form of money that can sit on your balance sheet and increase in value so that you're not screwed over by this. So there's that aspect of it that's, really, oh yeah, we'll have to talk about the infrastructure bill. So there's that aspect of it, which is pretty cool. But the hard part is like explaining to people that we're in a war with the state right now, and the state hates them, and that, Bitcoin is a tool for non-compliance, and this, that's what's really powerful about it, and where you'll get the most utility is telling the state to go fuck themselves. So I think that's the hard part, because a lot of people are still bought into this statism. That the money's broken, they realize it, they realize they're getting screwed, but they don't really want to admit that it's time to tell the state to go fuck off.
Yeah, and I think showing people ways to opt out, like that's a super meaningful thing. Yeah. Like this this project you're working on, this inflation documentary, I think is going to be a huge part of it. But it's like just showing people how to opt out. I mean, it's like that example at the beginning of, I personally don't give a shit about anything related to the school board because my kids aren't in a public school. Like, I don't send them to those Soviet indoctrination camps, so I don't have to care about any of that. And it's like thinking through how we apply that principle to as much of our life as possible, and then also being encouraged that we will be empowered to apply that principle to more and more of our life as things go along and as this develops, and as we get to watch the cathedral burn more and more.
Yeah,
it's gonna be beautiful.
And I guess that's a huge aspect of like selling these businesses on it. It's like inflation really isn't that much of a worry when you're holding Bitcoin, because it's like we're at all-time highs today. Gas keeps on going up, but like gas price and Bitcoin goes down. Housing prices keep on going up, but housing prices and Bitcoin keeps on going down. Like this is a stat I share a lot with people when I'm trying to sell them on Bitcoin as a savings mechanism, or maybe not sell them, but explain to them, because I don't really give a shit if they accept it or not. But houses in Tucson in 2016 were $177,000. They were like 220 Bitcoin. And then today, houses in Tucson so 5 years later, houses are $305,000 and are somewhere around 6 to 4 Bitcoin. I haven't calculated since the all-time high, but it's like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. But I tweeted this out today, like my rent a few months ago, probably June or so, whenever it was 4 million sats. I just paid it today. It was 1.8 million sats.
Nice.
And it's like, it still kills me to spend, and that's what I put in the tweet. It's like it still kills me to realize I'm spending each month an amount that will buy a mansion in 2025, because we are in the super cycle, CC Jimbo coin. And so it's just, it's wild to see, but it's down from 4 million to 1.8 million sats. And that's going to happen more and more to more and more of the lives of people who hold Bitcoin, which is why we need to convince people to see the light.
Yeah. And I think like the idea of like spending Bitcoin being bad, I think is not a well thought through idea. I mean, like if you're going and buying, like spending more Bitcoin than you're bringing in, that's bad. As long as you're increasing your stack, that's important. But like if you're receiving your income in Bitcoin and you're spending Bitcoin, it's really not that problematic. And so I think it comes down to like opening up multiple income streams. And I think we've talked about this, on here, is like, and there's other aspects of that are exciting, but I mean, you can use Strike and instantly change your fiat to Bitcoin if you want to do the KYC route. But yeah, I mean,
and to get as close to $0 as possible. Like that was another thing. It's just like this idea that like, if I can pay rent without selling any Bitcoin, then I'm short Bitcoin. I'm holding way too many dollars. If I can buy, nice. I mean, there's some people that take it as far as if I can buy groceries without selling Bitcoin, then I'm short Bitcoin. And it's like this idea of treating the dollar the same that we would treat Cardano or some bullshit like that. Like, would you, like if you had a certain set of expenses where the only way you could pay it was with Cardano, would you like hold on to Cardano for a month so that you could, pay, buy this thing with Cardano? No, you'd be like, oh fuck, I have to use this bullshit, this like Charles Hoskinson made up horse shit, just absolute dog shit pile of money. It's like I have to use that nonsense to pay whatever this bill is. So how would I handle that situation? At the last possible second, I would buy the minimum amount of Cardano that I need, which is what selling Bitcoin is. It's buying fiat. And then I would use that to pay this bill. I would have pity on that person for valuing Cardano and for wanting it. And then I would move on with my life. And so it's like, I've become convinced that's the approach, the proper approach to dollars, especially because again, Jimbo Coin is right. We are headed into the super cycle. And I don't know. I think that's the approach, is to hold all Bitcoin, and then at the last possible second, whenever, we're faced with an unfortunate situation where somebody still insists on using slave money, we sell a little, convert that amount to dollars, pay this person with a completely, morally bankrupt worldview, and then we move on with our lives.
Yes.
So I don't know. That's what I did. That's why I just started doing in the last 45, 60 days, something like that. This has not been a long-term trend. So, but I'm liking it so far.
Yeah, no, I enjoy doing that too. That's a great comparison. I think Cardano is a lot less likely to pull off their attempt to roll out a social credit system.
Yeah.
Than the U.S. dollar system.
Oh, and I was just trying to think of the most retarded one I could think of. So maybe Shiba Inu would have been better, but I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all stupid.
Yeah. I was pitching this business on Bitcoin this morning, and they seemed somewhat interested, which is cool. But they asked me about Shiba Inu, and it instantly differentiated. Bitcoin is not this bullshit. And I think what's important, to discuss around, why are the shit coins a thing right now? Why are they so popular? Why is there so much attention around them? Is explaining the brokenness of the money system and how everybody feels like they're on a treadmill. It's like I threw out those housing prices. So houses have almost doubled in Tucson in the past 5 years. The rent has increased by 30% in the last year. How the hell are you supposed to save money? What are the incentives pushing people towards? It's pushing people towards ridiculous degeneracy. Because it's this idea of I'm never going to be able to go and buy this asset, so I might as well walk in the casino and go play slots. And maybe if I win, then I'll be able to get a house or a car, or, whatever it is. And that is literally the mentality of people right now. So,
yeah.
So, circling back again to Project Veritas. So last week I pitched this idea of are they controlled opposition? Are they doing the bidding of, bigger people by pulling us into this culture war of irrelevancy? And yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to walk that back. I mean, it's something interesting to consider, I think, with most people in the media in general. And you should probably consider it about us too. And just question that when you're being fed information. Is this leading me towards something else? And I wonder a lot of times about that. But I don't know. After they got raided by the FBI, I felt a lot less like they're likely to be that controlled opposition. They might be legit.
Yeah, my gut would be not controlled opposition, but I don't know. To me, the controlled opposition is the Q stuff, the stuff where the outcome is so obviously. I mean, you talk about a deep state wet dream. That's all this Q bullshit. It's all these people no, just fucking sit at home, watch your Fox News, watch your Glenn Beck, order DoorDash, and in 18 months, Trump will fix everything. It's that's, to me, that's obviously controlled opposition. And so for stuff like that, I think I look at the outcomes, and I look at, what outcomes were achieved by these people. It's were the outcomes aligned with what the powers of the state want, or are they not? And I mean, 9/11 is another obvious one. Look at the outcome of that. The outcome of that was George Bush's wet dream. And it's another one, which is to me, completely obvious that was state action. Just like the Q stuff. But I would lean towards this Veritas guy being at least somewhat legit.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, he's what I was saying last week. I think he's good intentioned and pure at heart. But it's something I consider on a regular basis. It's am I somehow unknowingly feeding into what these maniacs in power want? Because I think there's a lot of ways we can contribute to accelerating their goals, and I want to ultimately be as disruptive as possible for them. But yeah, okay, so going off the 9/11 stuff, I think it's time for some conspiracy time.
All right. And we got Joe Dirte in the spaces I see. Joe, if you have anything that we're right, wrong, or in between about, let us know.
Yeah. Travis Scott. That was
a fucking satanic ritual for sure.
What was that thread that you
Yo,
saw?
what up?
What's
up, Joe?
Hey,
I'm
Joe.
down to participate in some crazy conspiracy time.
All right, what do you think?
Fun.
Actually, let's give you first pass. What do you think about that Travis Scott, that satanic ritual of a concert where people died of heart attacks?
Oh, damn. Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time believing that Vax isn't involved with that many cardiac arrests at once. But I also think I heard something about like some people getting like injected in the crowd with shit. Like, I don't know if that's just like a cover or what, but it's definitely satanic, crazy ass shit.
And then it's like how the whole stage turned into these like all-seeing pedo eyes right when the people started dying. And I don't know. I'll put the link under the whatever, the Spaces link here on Toxic Airwaves so people can check it out.
Yeah, I heard like when the video of that kid that was like seizuring on the ground, the song that he was singing at that time was called like Death or Murder or some shit, which is just like extra creepy.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just wild, man.
Yeah, there was the poster for the conference that said "See you on the other side" too, which was also equally as creepy. There was a lot about it that was really creepy.
I don't know if this is like just coincidence or what, but one of the promotional ads was like, we're going to be injecting a ton of excitement into Austin or wherever the fuck it was at. And it was like, ooh, injecting is some choice wordage when that's what one of the main theories is. I don't know. The world's pretty fucked. I wouldn't be that surprised if someone was going around injecting people with shit. Like, there's crazier shit that could happen.
Yeah, and that happened on some important. It wasn't the solstice. It was. I'm dumb when it comes to.
Oh, Skeef, I got a good one for you.
What's up?
What is your thought? Since we're talking conspiracies, what's your thought on the that Vegas shooting? You know, the one at the country concert. Like that one throws so many red flags for me.
Yeah.
Like,
my guess is, so it looks. It's a couple of theories. Number one, that some people think, and I think there's a very compelling argument to be made for this, that it was like a CIA arms deal with terrorists that went bad. So like the reason there were so many guns up in that room is because but I don't know. My problem with that one is why the fuck would they do it in a hotel? Like they're right by the desert. Why wouldn't they just go out in the middle of the desert? But like the thing that people have to explain is why the fuck were there so many guns in that room? And then also listen to the recording of it. That's not a fucking bump stock. No way that's a bump stock. That's a fully automatic, like military rifle that's doing the shooting down into the crowd. It's not some.
And how could a regular guy ever get all that equipment up into that hotel room? Like everyone's been. I mean, most of us have been to Vegas. Like, I feel like you can't just. I don't know. That's one that's always thrown some mad red flags for me.
There are, again, this could be faked, but there are security camera footage of him just with like duffel bag after duffel bag going up the elevator. A really good podcast. There's a podcast called Theories of the Third Kind. They did, I don't remember if it was one of their premium ones because I do subscribe because I'm bougie like that. I throw them $5 a month. And so I don't remember if it was one of the premium ones that only really, really, really cool people like me get to listen to, or if it was one of the general ones. But Theories of the Third Kind, they did a fantastic episode on this. And it's like the guy's whole background, his dad was a fucking spook, his grandpa was a spook, his uncle was a spook.
Holy shit.
I mean, his dad, look into his dad too. His dad's a trippy story. So this guy's I can't remember his name, the guy that shot him. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but his dad, basically long story short, like did a whole bunch of like teaching English overseas in quotes type shit, all over Southeast Asia, like all these different places. And then he came back, he like got what did he get? He got convicted of like a massive felony bank robbery, like something that you'd go to jail for decades for, and he got arrested. Well, no, he got arrested for something. He got out. He robbed a bank. He was literally wanted for like well over a decade. He was on the FBI most wanted list. He finally gets arrested after being a fugitive for years and years and years and years, and gets probation. Like he like robs a bank, which should have got decades in jail. He gets out. He breaks out. I forget how exactly he breaks out. He's a fugitive for 10 years. I think he like skips bail or something like that. And then when he finally gets caught, you know, U.S. Marshals, whoever grabs him, and the motherfucker gets probation. And this is the dad of the guy. And it's just like, it's one of those, like, there's just so much, there's like, you know, that's like 3% of the story.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty important detail.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I fucking hate news, dude. Like, news is never going to tell you the important information. They're just going to, like, paint the picture, you know? Like, oh, this is, like them trying to say that all these people were dying from being, like, at the concert this week, and they're trying to say that it was from, like, the mosh pit. But the video obviously shows the kid fucking seizing on the ground.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, what would we do without Twitter, man?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I just, under the Toxic Airwaves post for this episode, I just put that thread for the concert that goes through all the different satanic shit on there. But like, so anyway, Las Vegas, another good one is that it was basically like a Saudi, like I don't know, somehow like a Saudi CIA thing, because they work together all the time. And so it's like this idea that, you know, there was some sort of Saudi arms deal, or like showing off arms or weapons, something like that. And that because there were a bunch of Saudis in the area for sure. And it's like there are tons and I forgot about this piece of it. There's also supposedly that bin Salman, the king of Saudi, I don't know if he's the king or whatever, Mohammed bin Salman, he's either the king or one of the big dogs in Saudi Arabia. And, well, they're Muslim. You're not supposed to call them dogs. Muslims hate dogs. But anyway, get over it. He was there that day, so that they think that it might have been an assassination attempt on him by, you know, he's trying to round up the oligarchs and things like that. And so some people think like this was part of an assassination, like there was like cover for an assassination attempt on him. There's like all kinds of fuckery. One thing is for sure is that guy did not make a living playing video poker and then decide to buy a whole bunch of guns and go up to his hotel room and, you know, shoot some concert goers.
Yeah, I mean, that story is just horseshit. I mean, that's one of the most obvious ones of like, okay, well, there's some serious missing details, and they don't seem to care to look into it. So what does that tell you? Yeah, but the thing about his dad, yeah, that's super interesting. Wow.
Yeah, listen to that Theories of the Third Kind episode. Look, Theories of the Kind, Las Vegas, on wherever you listen to podcasts. Check it out.
Alex Jones, his theory was that it was a Saudi civil war of sorts. So, yeah,
I could see that. Yeah, that would probably play into the like oligarchs versus the king.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah. Max, you got anything for us?
Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry, I had to unmute. No, just coming in. So, it's all hoax, like usual.
Yeah. we started off at the Travis Scott concert and how that was probably a satanic ritual of sorts.
Yeah. And I wish Clancy was here to tell us about Stargates. Clancy's our resident Stargate expert.
Gosh.
I got a good one for you guys.
All right, let's hear it.
So,
he knows it. Shoot it.
So you know how Bill Gates is a fucking psychopath weirdo?
Yeah, pedo.
Yeah. That's pretty established. And he was talking about how like all the countries should prepare for like a germ war game, and that like it'd be really awful if a smallpox variant was released in like the 5 major airports or 5 major airports across the world, and like an anti-smallpox medication was just approved like a couple weeks ago or months ago from the FDA. All that shit is like, Bill Gates might have another fucking mega germ up his sleeve.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
jeez.
So I have a new YouTube channel that I love called Canadian Prepper, and he had on.
Shout out to Zorn. No, it's not Zorn.
It's not Zorn.
Zorn's from Canada.
He had on a bunker manufacturer who builds, is probably one of the leading bunker manufacturers around the world. He like goes to people's house and builds these really sweet, expensive bunkers for them. And he said that a lot of the global elites are building them right now. And he was talking about Bill Gates in particular. He said Bill Gates has one at like every single house. And, you know, he confirmed that he knows that the Denver airport bunker is real. But yeah, I think he may have alluded to something like that in that conversation. So that is something that has come up. And like one of the things I think which has not gotten enough attention over the past year is, you know, there's been all this focus on Wuhan, but there hasn't been a lot of focus on what's happening. Is it Fort Detrick up on the East Coast where the U.S. does all their or a lot of their weird virus research? Do you know, Skeeve?
That one I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, so the U.S. has something similar to like the Wuhan lab, but it's top secret military. And then they also have the Dugway Proving Grounds in, Utah, you know, which is another, they call that Area 52, which is another fun rabbit hole to get down. But this has happened in the past where the Soviet Union was testing, you know, smallpox and accidentally released it on the population. There's this island that nobody can go on in Russia because it's so contaminated with, you know, the virus still lingering there. And
that's what Lyme disease is. Like Lyme disease was like a chemical weapon that they were using, like infecting ticks with, and it supposedly got out of a lab, and it got its name because like the research facility was like right next to Lyme, Connecticut, and Lyme was Connecticut was the first place where they saw little kids get Lyme disease. So it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. Skeef is messaging British Huddle was in our spaces at one point.
For a few minutes, I just noticed it.
Maybe somebody told him about our sponsorship deal with Dennis.
Hey, shout out to Sat Yoshi. I see you in here on that fantastic contribution to the Upstream Data meme contest. That was awesome. His was the black box, the miners in the ring, but with the lady proposing, or the guy proposing. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. That Bill Gates smallpox one, though, is definitely one to watch. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I think everybody's so tuned in right now. I think it'd be really difficult for them to get away with something like that, but we'll see.
I brought this up several times at whatever events I'll go to. Skeet, you may remember me talking to you about this. After it was before Bill Gates announced, everybody get ready for germ war and stuff. This is early 2000s or whatever, obviously shaping up for Corona stuff. I believe he was, I'm trying to find the link, so bear with me on this for fact check. But it is a TED Talk, and it was either before or after all 2020 stuff. And essentially the TED Talk moderator said, Bill, you were so right on, what happened. And of course he had that smile and, clearly signaling that he obviously did it, or at least was well in the know on that. But she simply asked, well, what's going to be the next crisis? Because you clearly predicted the last one. And again, with that like evil smirk on his face, he goes, well, there's going to be two crises towards the end of this decade, 2020s. And that's going to be another virus similar to what we just experienced now, but on orders of magnitude, more impact and damage. But also there's going to be a climate crisis. But more specifically, we might not have sunlight due to blah, blah reasons or whatever. And I just constantly keep going back to this to go, he has already done, not him specifically, but he has funded development for putting, I think it's aluminum powder or some type of aluminum dioxide stuff in the atmosphere, which essentially blocked out the sun and manipulated the weather patterns. of course, we know this for a fact. Back in 2008 for the Beijing Olympics, China did this during the Olympics to remove any unwanted weather conditions, and they were very successful at it. It was a wonderful experience. Of course, we know how horrible that is for the environment. So if you just put two and two together, you have these business cycles every 5 to 8 years that you get a pullback, and things the board needs to be reset. Of course, this was that time now for 2020. So don't be surprised if something like this happens in 2027, 2029, sometime in that range. But more particularly, what was the most detrimental environmental things that can happen for a recovery from this current pandemic was what we all practice and preach: drink more water, eat more meat, be outside, get some vitamin D and sunlight, fresh air. What happens when you do this all over again in the next 5 to 7 years, and there literally is no sun because, let's make it up, some aluminum factory exploded and released 100 trillion metric tons worth of aluminum powder in the atmosphere, and the sun is blocked out for 6 months in a particular region, which, pick whichever region that is. But I will share that, because I've told this to so many people. I will share that TED Talk link if I can find it before we wrap up. But I just keep going back to that, going, this is extremely planned and organized, as we've always said. But they're like telling us exactly what they're going to do. But to your point, Tucson, it's very difficult to do it back to back to back, right? Everybody's already on hyper awareness for what has just happened, and it has to be a frog in the low boiling water to bring it up to temperature like that. You can't just flash the pan right away. But I just want to bring that up because I find it extremely nerve-wracking, because that's really the only remedy that you kind of had for this stuff. Just general clean water and sunlight, right? Eat healthy. But they definitely do a great job at telling you what they're going to do before they do it.
Yeah. I think they're intentionally trying to eliminate people's ability to be self-sovereign. And so like the aluminum nitrate, I think, or aluminum oxide, is used for cloud seeding specifically. So they used to fire that off of like prop planes to like if there were some clouds overhead, they would fire it off into the clouds, which would ionize the clouds and create them to grow. And I'm not, like, forgive me if I'm bad with any of this terminology, and it's super, super toxic, and they practice these things. And like what it comes down to with all of this stuff, if you have Bill Gates, Mr. Monsanto, Mr. insane, like poisoning the world, with pesticides and Roundup and GMOs and bullshit. What you have is you have central planning, which is extremely unnatural, and extremely destructive. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. Is you've got these maniacs that think that they're gods, essentially, and that we're all, their subjects, or I don't know, whether underlings, and we're here to be controlled. And yeah, it just goes back to like why are we complying with this bullshit? Like, at the end of the day, like, you're just feeding into the government is not the government. The government is a force. It's a monopoly on violence used to protect people like Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein and the Rothschilds and Jamie Dimon and whoever else. Oh, you got the link. Cool. I'll watch that afterwards.
Yeah.
Fuck Bill Gates.
Yeah, and it's we've talked about it before, but it's like, I think it's important to keep in mind that this is. Like, you can draw a straight line from what they started with 9/11 to what they're trying to complete this decade. And it's the same people doing it. It's the same apparatus involved. And it's the same goal, which is, getting a level of control over society is completely unprecedented. And they were very, very, very successful at that with 9/11. And so, I don't know. I'm optimistic. Like, I don't know. Like, would align with somebody like Laser Hodl on a lot of this stuff. I think he has a lot of good ideas, a lot of good things to say. And just like this idea that what we're watching is, like 2030 is the big show that they're going for. And when we'll know by then how all this great reset stuff is going to shake out, how successful it was, where it was successful, where it wasn't. I'm optimistic that we will probably know a lot sooner than that because it'll fall apart and burn. But I definitely don't want to get comfortable and complacent, given that, as we've talked about before, that they have successfully fought off every single threat to their power since at least World War II, arguably since Julius Caesar, but at least since World War II. And it's just, they shot a sitting president in the middle of the afternoon. Like there's very, very, very powerful people on the other side of this, and their power is trending towards zero. And long term, Bitcoin wins. Long term, the state loses. But we live now. We don't live in the future, and so we definitely need to be cautious about how we.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of going to go off of. Is if Bitcoin was the unseeable variable that is going to blow up their plan.
Yep.
And secondly, congrats everyone for hodling. Another all-time high today. It's ripping, so it's good. But yeah, I think Bitcoin may be the. Without Bitcoin, there'd be no real signal through the noise to know what the real free market is saying. Because they've got gold captured, obviously,
right?
And stocks are just, all the CEOs just, how that works. It's just parasitic relationships and bad incentives. But I think Bitcoin may be the light that is bright enough to clean the fiat scum.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I agree with that for sure.
So we got some interesting stuff in chat. That's beautiful. So Lurk says, I know nothing about Stargate, so just a quick explanation. There's a great show called Stargate. Go watch it, and you can kind of get an explanation of it. But there's these rings that allow people to travel interdimensionally. So that's what Stargate is. Essentially, you have like a phone, you dial where you want to go. So Lurk says, the world's first patient to be diagnosed as suffering from climate change happened today. They're in Canada, of course. Fuck Canada. Fuck the state in general.
Especially the Canadian state.
Yeah.
Yeah, what does that mean?
So, Lurk, we asked Lurk in chat what that meant. So, Dr. Kyle Merritt examined a senior citizen who suffered from asthma and faced breathing difficulties. That's a Google quote. Yes, LOL, they were diagnosed with climate change as a condition.
Sounds like asthma, sounds like bronchitis, in my medical opinion.
Yeah.
And that's, it seems, it's either going to be cyber pandemic or climate is the next thing they're going to really hammer on, I think.
Or both.
Or both at the same time. Yeah, it's just going to be.
It's kind of rough to be someone that really cares about the environment and wants to see us quit destroying the world. Get thrown into the same bucket of ESG people that have obviously went off the rails, and that whole ESG thing is it's about power, really, is what it's about. But there's some of us that actually just want to not destroy the environment, but they don't really have a home.
Yeah, and that moving to a Bitcoin standard will move people towards cultivation of land across generations. It's I hate ESG, I hate all that noise, fuck Greenpeace, all that climate change, everything, and one of my big goals is to have a huge piece of property, something that have multiple projects on there that just cannot be completed within my lifetime, that are way bigger than what one person could accomplish. Talking about redeeming prairie back to what it was, 300 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, redeeming forest back to what it was that time. These things just by definition can't be completed in one person's lifetime. And I think you're going to see a lot of people, once we have money that we can trust across centuries, I think we're going to have projects that we can that can't be completed except across centuries and potentially much longer. And that's,
if you think about it, like how do you even plan a multi-century project in the fiat world?
right.
It's impossible.
Right.
Like your balance sheet blows up every time, inevitably.
Yep.
So, yeah, 100% with you, bro.
Yeah.
This is a topic I'm extremely passionate about, and something I want to be moving towards in the future. So after I shoot this documentary on inflation in Tucson, there's a huge movement of regenerative agriculture, natural agriculture, permaculture in Tucson, which I want to highlight. And it's something that's happening. I feel like there's, a bunch of movements happening separately, but along the same values. And I think Bitcoin is really aligned with those people. It's really aligned with the 3D gun printing community. And there's not a lot of overlap between. I feel like there's a lot of Bitcoiners that are into 3D gun printing and a lot of Bitcoiners that are into that self-sustainable farming practices and, treating the earth well and having low time preference. But I don't think there's a lot of overlap being reciprocated from those communities into Bitcoin. And so that's something, I think is going to be interesting to see as we kind of align together and interact together a lot more. But yeah, it's super exciting. And that's the thing is like, there's a big differentiation between AOC and the Green New Deal and actually giving a shit about the planet. Michael Moore actually did as shitty as he is, did a pretty interesting documentary on how bullshit like a lot of the climate movement is. So yeah, I'll plug that one.
Didn't he start the documentary under the goal of like making a ESG friendly area and make a movie that's like, I'm going to help save the planet. And then he got halfway through and he was like, holy fuck, the ESG like industrial complex is a monster. And then he kind of like switched what his movie was about. If we're talking about the same thing, I might be mistaken. But.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because he tends to align with the left in that way that it seems like he would set out to go like that. But I can't corroborate whether that's true or not. And there's definitely some fair criticisms of that documentary, but I think overall it's pretty good. Yeah.
I don't think enough people are talking about how insidious the ESG beast is, and like not understanding that AOC saying let's get to net zero by 2030 means family freezing at night. Like these are the same thing.
Right.
But you just want to wrap it in your nice bow and say I'm saving the planet. It's like no, you're causing immense human suffering.
Yep.
For no reason at all, just to feel good about yourself.
Well, it's even worse than that. It's for political power, and it's for like it's not just her feeling good about herself. It's these. Yeah, I mean these we've called them, or I've called them this before. It's like these people are absolute psychopaths and literal terrorists, and this idea that we need to give them any sort of legitimacy, I think, is totally misguided.
Yeah, I think like on this trend, I think we need to be as militantly opposed to carbon credits as we are to vax mandates, and I think it's the same exact mentality. And Joe and I were talking last week. Joe Rogers and I were talking about how they would potentially implement these carbon credits or carbon tax, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because that's one area of control that they have a lot of power in is energy distribution, and non-compliance is difficult without state involvement of some sort. So like for a local state like Arizona to be like, fuck you guys, we're not complying with it and we're sourcing our energy from Texas or something like that. So that
if you take carbon credits and to its logical conclusion from their point of view and trying to get to net zero, then you'll have to literally like pay like per breath. Like literally like every time we breathe, we're releasing CO2. Like their mission is anti-human at the end of the day because so I don't know. You take it to its logical conclusion and it gets just as dystopian as you'd Yeah, as you'd guess.
And the number one way that they can squeeze us with all this stuff is by squeezing our income and by squeezing our wealth. And that's income denominated in sats that's uncensorable, and wealth denominated in sats that's uncensorable. Is, we keep harping on it. Everybody's heard this a billion times, but it's like it's impossible to exaggerate how important that is for opting out of this insanity.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're pro-human, you're going to be anti-carbon tax. You're going to be anti-vax mandate. You're going to be anti-social credit and anti-CBDC. Gosh. It just blows my mind. I mean,
Pro-Bitcoin, pro-human flourishing.
I think this is like the reason why they get away with it a lot is like people have trouble understanding that there's people that want to just completely extinguish other people. Like I think they look at Bill Gates and they're like, there's no way this guy could potentially be as evil as he actually is. And when he says these things, he doesn't actually mean about like population reduction. Like that's not what he's talking about, and they kind of go along with it because I think they don't realize how insane the idea of like limiting population growth is. When he goes out there and says we're going to use vaccines to limit how many, kids can be born and control fertility, they don't connect the dots. And there's this aspect too where they're just like, oh, if they do that in developing countries, that's great, because it's not us. And so yeah. But either way, it's fucked.
Yeah.
The whole idea of using the healthcare system to slow down population growth or reverse it is like a super sick idea. But the weird part is he says it out loud.
Yes.
Like you'd think like, oh, I'm going to leverage healthcare systems in the third world to help them survive longer, live better lives, whatever. And he's literally just like, yeah, I'm going to decrease their population with healthcare. Like, what the fuck?
Oh, shout out to Shinobi, who this week called me a fucking idiot for not being on the organ donor list. He said that he told me to go smoke a bong, or I forget what exactly. But basically, if you're not on the organ donor list, if you don't trust government lists run by the people that have been trying to take everything you have for the last 2 years, then you're a fucking idiot and a conspiracy theorist, and you need to go smoke a bong. That's what Shinobi told me.
He's a very opinionated guy.
Yeah. I offered to give him emotional counseling. I told him that I had a kid who had a similar issue with emotional outbursts around age 4, and we developed some really good strategies for dealing with those kind of emotional outbursts. And I told him, I said, yeah, let's jump on the phone, let's have a phone call, and I think we can develop some good strategies to help you with these emotional outbursts that you're having. And he did not take me up on that, surprisingly.
Yeah. I never understood. You kind of explained Shinobi to me, but I've never understood why that guy gets so much attention.
He's just been around a while.
He had a Bitcoin Talk account.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Okay, we're right about at 2 hours. I think it's time for our sponsors.
Oh, yeah. We couldn't do this show without our wonderful, wonderful sponsor. Shout out to Dirtbags Bar in Tucson, Arizona. Easily, without a doubt, the number one place in Southern Arizona to meet your future ex-wife. It's right down there by University of Arizona, so you can be guaranteed that the clientele is just absolutely top-notch. It's going to be a bunch of woke 21, 22-year-olds from the Greek houses just hanging out, having a good time, talking about how they know everything about fixing the world. So if you're in Tucson, if you're in Southern Arizona, check out Dirtbags Bar. Shout out to them. Meet your future ex-wife.
Dirtbags is the shit. Yeah, our other sponsor, this is presented by Dennis Porter. Check him out. Cool dude. Really good at coming up with original content. But yeah, he compensates us very generously with Glassnode screenshots from British HODL. You got any? What are the trading trends happening? What are the on-chain metrics looking like?
Oh, we are for sure heading into fully erect cock and balls. We're at all-time high. It's going to keep going. I'm seeing the what's the captured value is at its highest value. It's at its highest dollar value.
The realized market cap or whatever.
Realized market cap. That's the one I was looking for.
Lot
of old coins haven't moved in a while. That tells us that they're either lost or people that hold them understand Bitcoin. And I think we got. Actually, shout out to Beef or Bacon on Twitter. He had a dream I saw this week. That he had a dream, I forget what it was, like right before we broke 7,000, he had a dream that we were going to break 7,000. And then he said last night he had a dream that we were going to hit 95,000, I think. I forget the exact numbers, but that was the point. Anyway, long story short, I trust Beef or Bacon's dreams far more than on-chain TA, no question about it. Another great source, if you are looking for something that'll really level up your on-chain TA game, check out that vegan shitcoiner witch lady, the one that always wears red. I think one of the planets is in retrograde. I still haven't looked up what that means because I refuse
Martem? Isn't her name like Martem?
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, it's something about the moon.
I know who.
I know
who you're talking.
I think full moon leads to Bitcoin moon. I think she said something like that. So that's another great source for trading data. Is that that vegan witch lady? So, but just between on-chain TA, the vegan witch lady, and Beef or Bacon's dreams, everything's looking like everything's looking like we're headed up. Going to keep going. Definitely trade on that information. It's extremely reliable. All three of them.
Yeah. So, on that topic of. So retrograde means that the planet looks like it's moving further away from us.
Yeah.
On the topic of weird stuff, there's another YouTube channel I like. His name is Dark Journalist.
I've heard about this.
Yeah, he's cool. He gets into like Atlantean stuff, and he gets out there. He talks about the occult a lot, stuff that's really interesting. I like to fall asleep to his content. Because it's just the way my brain works. I like to fall asleep to conspiracy things. But Joe Dirte's throwing out a bunch of emojis.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I'm bouncing, guys.
All right.
That was fun. Hope you have a good rest of your night.
I think we're on our way out too.
See you, man.
Thanks for joining.
See you, Joe. Anunnaki too. Look up that shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my girlfriend's super into Anunnaki.
That's legit. I buy that stuff almost 100%.
I think they're. Oh no. I'm thinking of the Hopi urn. That's another one. But he was talking a lot about the elite's fascination with Mars and Elon Musk's fascination with Mars, and that being tied to war, and it's super interesting stuff to get into. But yeah, there's a lot out there that we don't understand. That's why we have TA. TA helps us make sense of this world. Glassnode.
Definitely don't buy a brand new S19 that will print you money. Go out and buy a Glassnode subscription.
Yes,
for an equal amount of money.
Is it? How much?
It's roughly the same. It's $800. It's they've detached a little bit. I initially there was a time period when the price of a Glassnode subscription, so it's $800 a month for 12 months up front, so $9,600, was identical to the price of an S19. And I just thought that was fucking hilarious. You can literally buy a new gen miner, or this like fake crystal ball for. Anyway,
S19 seem like an amazing buy right now.
Yeah,
go to Kaboom Racks.
Yeah,
I like Kaboom Racks.
Yes, big fan of Kaboom Racks on the show for sure.
Yeah, they got some S19s if you want them. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Keep it a tiny percent of your portfolio, though. Single digits. I would never consider doing more than that.
Yeah, it's like $11,000 to $12,000 for an S19. If you have 11 to 12 cent energy, that's like $30 a day in profit. It's probably up more with the all-time high. I calculated last week, but it's solid. I mean, you can pay for your like people talk about like doing things like going out and buying solar to subsidize your electricity costs. That's stupid. Just go buy an S19.
Yeah.
Absolutely idiotic. I ran the numbers up, down, left, right, backwards, and forwards. I do know people actually in your guys' area that are using solar, but it's only subsidizing their mining by like 25%. Again, big savings, and they're using their neighbor's solar panels, so they didn't, expend any of their capital to build out that infrastructure. But it's nowhere near as profitable as what people think.
Massive sunk cost is that's the only time solar and mining makes sense together. If you're like, fuck, we overbuilt this shit because we have government money, what can we do with it? That's the point where it might potentially start to make sense to incorporate solar to mining. Outside of that, it's a fucking boondoggle.
Exactly.
I still have this dream of being off grid fully and running miners on I don't know what to call it, regenerative
hydro. You could do.
Yeah, but not where I am.
Yeah, not in the desert.
Get like 2 days a year. There's a washout near my house. And like 7-8 days a year that I could get hydro when it rains.
In Oregon, if it wasn't run by goddamn communists, that would be a good spot for hydro.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much energy you can harness with a little turbine or a few turbines. If you had a river, you could build a little ditch and run, or even just stick it in there.
And solar is fantastic for getting off grid. Like I plan to have a property around here, and I'll do it totally off grid with solar.
Yeah,
because I don't want to be attached to the electrical grid, but I sure as hell won't run any miners on it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, S19s, swear that.
Yeah, but anyway, don't do an S19. Definitely get a Glassnode subscription because you need like little charts with lines on it and shit, so you can tweet it out for Twitter points.
Yeah. Shout out to the guy diagnosed with climate change. Really big bummer for that dude.
Yeah.
So let's see. Okay, announcements. We've got Samurai coming out on the November 16th, I believe, Tuesday. They're going to be doing a privacy. So Samurai Amrun and Dojo by Gira Moneta. So I'm not familiar with Gira, but that'll be cool. 16th, I haven't scheduled the Tucson meetup. I'll probably do that Saturday. I don't know when I'll do that. It's so busy this month. And then we're going to have the Christmas party in Orange County on the 6th.
I believe it's the 9th.
The 9th.
Thursday the 9th.
Yeah.
Out in Orange County in Costa Mesa. I unfortunately will not. I was planning on going. I will not be able to make it. Got family stuff here with the kiddos. But
it's a good excuse.
Definitely, if at all possible, go to that Christmas party. It's going to be super fun.
I really hope to have my documentary released by then.
Oh, nice.
My goal is December, and November is moving fast, so I'm having to put a lot of work into that. So but yeah, stoked. Southwest Bitcoin area, we're rolling. We got a crew.
Having a good time.
Yeah.
We could let Texas be the conservative capital of Bitcoin. We got all these other decentralized anarchist capitals of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
The people that do not believe in the myth of political authority, you're welcome in Arizona.
Yeah. Shout out to Indianapolis. There's a meetup trying to spin up out of there that I'm pretty stoked on. I love Indy. Really cool city. Got the Indy 500, which is the world's best sporting event. Yeah.
A lot of sound money architecture in Indianapolis. A lot of like cities like that in the Midwest. Cincinnati's another good one. A lot of stuff, a lot of shit built in the 1800s and early 1900s before the money got fucked up.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah, I was trying to get 3D Nuts I was trying to start one out there, but I can only do so much. I got 3D Nuts to, that's his handle on Twitter to jumpstart that. And then also the Pittsburgh group as well. So between all the meetups in Ohio and Indianapolis and Pittsburgh now, southwest of the continental United States, you guys got some competition out here. We got like 8 or 9 kind of in the region.
Love it.
It's kind of looking very similar to the map in the Southwest area.
Love it.
Yeah, that's super exciting. I think the Midwest is, you get the upper Midwest that's growing. You've got lower Midwest in Nebraska and Kansas City, which they just
Kansas City just had a big one.
Yeah. Yeah,
they did. Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Max, who's here on Spaces, is the Johnny Appleseed of Bitcoin meetups. Motherfucker's running like 8 or 10 or however many meetups all around the Midwest.
I don't fucking know. I'm just out here hustling, spreading some
There you go.
good words.
Johnny Appleseed of Bitcoin meetups.
Yeah, I hope
humble. Thank you.
I hope to accomplish a little bit of that. What the hell is Chicago doing? They've got this like shitcoin meetup, Bitcoin open blockchain.
So I was talking to them this weekend at TabConf. Shout out to the Atlanta Bitcoin Conference. That was really cool. I wish you guys should have went. It was an excellent time. It's going to be next year in October, towards the end of the month. So I was talking to a couple people at Chicago and then also at Beefsteak in Austin a couple weeks ago. I talked to some of the straight guys as well. And the Chicago BitDevs is still going, but it's really small. So they're trying to jumpstart that even more. I told them I'll do my best to make it out there and see if we can rally the troops a little bit. But I know Stefan Rivera is going to be there, I think, tomorrow evening for his little talk that he's been doing around the country while he's out of communist Australia. And they are definitely looking to do whatever they can, to 10x, 100x the attendees. I think they said they only got like 5 or 7 people that show up to BitDev, so it's more just like a casual hangout rather than a more formal Socratic seminar. So we definitely got to get on that. I'll do my best.
Yeah. Chicago's would be a good city to have a big meetup in.
Just make sure that you're dodging bullets, though.
Yeah.
Dodge the bullets.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. Anybody with any common sense got the fuck out of Chicago.
Could be.
I hate that place. Yeah. I grew up around there. Chicago sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty bad when you're on a Tuesday afternoon on Michigan Avenue and there's like shootings right in front of the Gucci store. It's like,
is there really?
This is not good.
All
yeah,
right.
I'm being a little facetious, but I did hear that there was daylight robberies on Michigan Avenue earlier this year, and it's like that's crazy.
All right, maybe don't go to Chicago. Maybe try and convince them to come to Arizona where that doesn't happen. Because
exactly.
I don't know. Tucson, that stuff might start happening.
Somebody tried to rob a car in a drive-through a couple of weeks ago and got fucking smoked.
Yeah. There's that aspect of it that prevents it from happening, but even still, there's a. I was hoping to talk about this at some point. Maybe I'll save it for next week. But the fire police departments are like going through New York style staffing issues because of the city's policies. So things are going to get into.
Well, that's why it's called the Windy City, right? It's so corrupt in the politics.
Yeah. Oh, it's happening.
You're talking.
Yeah.
You're talking Tucson, you mean?
Oh yeah, Chicago is way worse than Chicago and New York are way worse than Tucson, but Tucson's getting I
didn't realize that, man. That's shitty.
Well, getting out of the population center, getting away from dense populations is, I think, incredibly important. For your personal safety and mental health and well-being.
Yeah.
So,
look at a star every once in a while.
Yeah. Tucson's a great city for stars. They actually have laws around like lights. They keep it dark here intentionally, which is kind of interesting. Free markets, maybe they won't save us from light pollution. Maybe they will. All right. I think that's it. Thank you everybody in Spaces. Thank you everybody in chat. Kept it interesting tonight. Good to have Skeef back. I hope you had a good trip.
Good to be back. Yep. I was in Mexico for a little bit. Had a good time.
Nice. All right.
See you guys. Thank you.
Deuces.